For today's tutorial, we are going to be working on the Chandler Fitted Back Expansion. To start, go ahead and gather everything you could possibly need for this project, including interfacing, pins, scissors, your pre-cut fabric, etc. Then the first thing we're going to do is interface our pattern pieces with my all-time favorite sew-in interfacing, which I have a video I will link to above. So I have gone ahead and interfaced all of my pattern pieces on the wrong side of the fabric, including the fly front, the front waistband, back waistband, and half of the fly shield. Now the next step is to stay stitch the edges of your pocket pieces on the front pant as well as the front pocket bag. Boysenberry, did you find a nice place to relax? What do you see? What do you see out there? Oh. Once you are done stay stitching, it's time to create the pleats or darts on the front pant leg. Boysenberry just wants to be a part of the process. I am working on the pleated version, so with the pleats, we're going to do them towards the pocket. Oh my gosh, she just wants all the pets right now. So I'm going to pinch my pleats and fold them over towards the pockets, matching the upper notches. Thankfully, I have a grid to follow, so I can easily make my pleats nice and straight. Awesome, so this is what it should look like. Now we are just going to sew them along the edge here and here to lock these pleats into place. Here's what a completed pleat will look like. Don't forget to backstitch at the end of each of your pleats. Then repeat with your remaining pleats. Once all of your pleats have been edge stitched into place, go ahead and give them a bit of a press. Now it's time to add our pockets. With right sides together, pin along the pocket opening edge. Then we can go ahead and sew along these two edges. Then you are going to want to go ahead and grade your seam just so that it's a little less bulky. Then we are just going to press your pocket this way. Be careful of any cute kitties that might be nearby. And then we're going to understitch this portion right here. So if you've never understitched before, this is a great opportunity to do so. What understitching is basically you are sewing along this edge and catching the seam allowance on the backhand side. And that way you only see the line of stitching right here and it doesn't come through the front, especially when you go to turn this over. This will be nice and clean and there will be a line of stitching right here just on the inside. So just sewing right along this edge, making sure that we are just catching the seam allowance. So this is what the pocket edge should look like. You have a nice line of stitching on the front, but it doesn't come through on this side, and it's just caught the seam allowance here. So this just lets our garment sit really nice and flush when we go to turn it under like this. It will keep the lining or the pocket piece from poking out of the line right here. Next up, we're going to flip our entire piece to the wrong side, so the side with all the interfacing should be facing up. Then bring this pocket piece over and press it along the pocket opening edge so that it's nice and crisp. Then take your back pocket bag piece and with right sides together, lay it right on top of the front pocket piece. Then pin all along the curved edge. Once your curved edges have been pinned together, go ahead and sew them together and then finish the seams with your preferred method. But before we do that, repeat this entire process with your second pants leg and pocket pieces. I am back to using a serger for my finishings as I have finally purchased some neutral organic threads, but feel free to finish your seams in whatever way you wish. You don't have to serge them. Once you are finished, go ahead and match up, Go ahead and match up all your notches and pin your pocket piece to the actual leg along the side seam and the top edge. Then baste your pocket pieces into place. Once everything has been basted into place, go ahead and finish the edge of your fly and crotch curve. With right sides together, pin your crotch curve and fly pieces together. And then what we're going to do is sew here with a regular stitch and then sew up to the notch using a basting stitch. You can also mark your basting stitch line with a bit of tailor's chalk or something so that it's super easy to get a straight line. Once you get to the part of the crotch curve right before you swap to a basting stitch, go ahead and back stitch a little bit, forward stitch, and then adjust your machine length to a basting stitch before continuing forward. Now make a little snip at the crotch point right where you back stitched a bit. Go to, not through, your line of stitching. Now you will be able to press your crotch curve to the left side of your pants while also pressing the fly pieces open, which is what I'm going to do now. And then we're going to flip our pants to the front side and sew along the right hand edge of the crotch seam from the waist edge through to the crotch. Alright, so your seam should look a little something like this, where it's just on the right hand side, and then if you were to flip it over to the back, it's also only caught on this side, so nothing has happened on the left hand side. Next, it's time for the zipper. But before we actually pin the zipper into place, what we want to do is mark a point at least 2 inches down from the waist edge because we don't want our zipper to go past this point. Then line up the zipper teeth edge to the center front seam with the majority of the zipper falling towards the right hand side of your pants. And then pin the zipper tape only to this little bit. So you don't want to go all the way through the pants, you just want to catch the zipper to the fly piece. Alright, so as you can see, it's only attached to this piece. What we're going to do is sew a line of stitching close to the zipper teeth all the way down and then another line right along the outer edge just to really lock this piece into place. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is actually change out our foot and add a zipper foot instead so that we can get really close to our zipper teeth. Then slowly sew the zipper into place. And then once you get close to the zipper head, lift your foot and zip it closed, which may be a little challenging. And then you can drop your foot back down and continue sewing the zipper into place. For this next step, flip the zipper and the right fly extension under and sew along the folded edge of the fabric strip that is seen right next to the zipper teeth. You'll want to sew from the very top edge of the waist all the way through to the bottom of the zipper tape. Next up, what you'll want to do is to actually pick this up and move it as far over to this edge as you can, and then just pin this edge into place. So it should look a little something like this. It's pinned through, and then as you can see, this kind of comes over a little bit, but not so much that it's like creating any weird wrinkles, especially on the outside. We don't want that. So now we're just going to repeat the same process we did here on this side, sewing 2 lines of stitching. Next, with your pants facing you, grab your faux fly guide, which is now going to be used as a real fly guide, and line it up against the center front edge right here and outline it with a bit of tailor's chalk or some other marking utensil. Once your fly has been marked, go ahead and pin everything down. So now we're going to sew 1 line of stitching here and then another line towards the inside as well. Beautiful, and then this is what it should look like on the outside. So you've got a nice curve going all the way up, and now our fly is nearly complete. Next up, we're going to work on our fly shield. To start, flip it to the right side and fold it in half like so, and then pin and sew along the bottom edge. Once sewn, trim the seams like so, and then flip it towards the right side. Then press the entire fly shield. Now place your fly shield's raw edge over the right side of the zipper tape. Then pin through just the right fly, not the entire pant. This is what you should wind up with, so we are going to sew just along this edge. Now it's time to trim off the excess bit of the right fly and then finish the seam. We have successfully completed the inside of our fly, which is amazing. Yay! To finish up our fly, flip your pants over to the right side and pin in 2 places along the fly curve. So maybe right here and then another one down here. And we're just going to do a couple of reinforcing stitches in these spots. Give all your threads a nice clip, and voila, this is what it's looking like on the front side. And then this is what it looks like on the back side, just nice and reinforced. As our final step, we're now going to open where we had basted our stitches to reveal all our hard work. Look at your new, super cool, fully functioning fly zipper. You did that, and it's amazing. So for now, we're going to set our front pants aside and work on our back. Look at this cutie. Oh, hi. You sleeping on my project? Oh, that was so cute. For your back pants, start by sewing your darts together. I like to draw out my darts using some tailor's chalk. This gives me a better visual of where my darts are, especially as when I get to sewing them into place. I then form the dart by pinching them together to form little triangles. Then it's time to sew. Make sure you aren't backstitching at the tapered point and are instead leaving a long tail of threads. Once your darts are all sewn, it is time to tie off the tails we left at the tapered point and then press our darts towards the center back seam. Repeat this process with all 4 of your back darts. Now we are just going to baste these darts down so that they don't move. Once your darts have been basted, with right sides together, match up your center back crotch curves and pin them together. Then go ahead and sew this curve as well as finish it. With your seam sewn and finished, go ahead and press it towards the left-hand side and then flip it over and stitch right along the right edge of your center back seam, just as you did for the front pants. With your back pants now complete, it's time to attach them to the front pants. With right sides together, pin your front pants to your back pants along the inner crotch seam from hem to hem. All right, now that everything is pinned, we are just going to start from one ankle and sew all the way up and around, as well as finish this seam. Once your crotch seams have been attached, it is time to sew together the 2 side seams. With right sides together, pin from the ankle through to the waist seam, then sew together and finish all of your seams. So for these next few steps, you might notice that they're different from your instructions, and that is because I filmed this sew along while these pants were in the testing phase, so I wound up attaching the waistband to the pants prior to sewing the belt loops. You can use either version of constructing your pants as the finished product looks the same. My testers just found it to be easier and a bit more secure to attach the belt loops prior to adding the waistband. All right, back to sewing. With the right side of your back waistband facing up, attach the side seam of the front waistband along this edge. You will know that it is the side seam because it is slightly more curved than the center front seam. So just pin, sew, and press those seams open. So now what we want to do is just finish the bottom edge of our entire waistband facing. With the waistband facing complete, it's time to pin it to the pants waist opening. I like to match up my side seams together first, followed by any notches, making sure that the right sides are touching. You might notice that there is a little bit of excess right at the center front, and that's totally okay. What we're going to do is just fold back that excess so that the line meets the center front edge like so. See, this one has a lot extra, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit so that only about 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters remains. And with everything pinned, it's time to sew. Once sewn, go ahead and grade your seams to reduce the bulk at the waist edge. Then press your seam upwards and understitch just as we did with the pockets. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is actually turn our waistband towards the inside, and we're going to pin it in a couple of places. The first place is going to be at the center front, so just make sure that your seam is nice and turned in, and you're going to fold it over and then pin it from the right side right along this edge. We are also going to pin it right along the darts or pleats, whichever one you made. Then pin along your side seams, back darts, and center back seam as well. Once everything is pinned, what you are going to want to do is at each pin point, we're going to sew a line of tacking stitches. So for the center front, you are going to sew a line from the top all the way down to the bottom of the waistband facing. And for this side of the fly, you can just follow the line of stitching already there. And then for your darts or your pleats, you can either go along your original line of stitching or along the inside of the dart. And you can do just a small line of stitching. It doesn't have to be the entire thing. You just want to make sure that you're catching the bottom edge of the waistband facing. This will keep the facing from peeking out while your pants are being worn. So as you can see, everything is now sewn into place and it looks nice and neat. We've got little stitches here that you can hardly see. Same goes for the side seam. It's just kind of hidden, and the darts. So yeah, now we can move on to the next step. So I have this little tag that I wanted to add to my pants, and I probably should have added it earlier, but I'm just going to slip it in and stitch it down right along the inner waistband edge now. I just love adding these tags. They're so cute and so fun, and this one really resonates with me. Now we only have a few steps left before we are finished with our pants. Next up, we're going to take one long edge of our belt loop and finish that edge. First thing we're going to do is press our raw edge in by 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters. I love that I have a grid here as it makes pressing a lot easier and more even. Then press the finished edge in by 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter. Now top stitch along the two long edges with the front of the belt loop facing you. And then we're going to cut 5 loops at 3.5 inches long. You will likely have a bit of material left over, which I added just in case we make a mistake or something while cutting, which I've definitely done before. Now we have our 5 belt loops ready to be attached. So I really like to pin my belt loops in the following locations, but feel free to pin yours wherever you like best. To pin, turn the top and bottom edge under by 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters. Once pinned, go ahead and sew both the top and bottom edge of the belt loops into place using a bunch of tiny straight stitches or even a bar tack stitch if you'd like. Look at how wonderful this all looks now. I absolutely love it. Now what we're going to do is add our button and buttonhole. To add your buttonhole, you will need to follow the directions for your particular machine. For mine, I have placed my button into a buttonhole foot and I'm putting that foot onto my machine, then adjusting the settings. Once my machine settings are correct, I will place my pants under the foot and get to sewing. Once your buttonhole is sewn, it's time to open it up. Since my fabric is a bit thick, I've decided to use a buttonhole chisel to cut it open, which makes for a fast and clean work. I did try to open mine with a seam ripper, but the fabric was just too thick. Next, it's time to add your button. Zip up your pants and lie your buttonhole fly over your empty fly. Using some sort of marking tool, mark through your buttonhole. This is where you will sew on your button either by hand or machine. I always like to take some time to sew mine by hand, which is what I'll do now. Okay, so our final step is hemming. So what you want to do is make sure your pants are on the wrong side. And what you're going to do is fold them up by 1/2 inch twice, press, and then pin them into place. Then you're just going to sew right along this upper pressed edge. If your machine has the ability to, go ahead and remove the front panel. This will just make sewing your hem a bit easier. Repeat with your other pant hem. Alright, so this next step is totally optional, but I always like to include it, which is adding cuffs to the bottom pant leg. I just really like the style. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold your cuff up whatever amount you would like. I personally prefer to do 2-inch cuffs, so I'm going to fold my cuff up 2 inches twice. The cuff is going to cause a bit of excess in the leg since the ankle is much smaller than the calf, but that is how I designed this pant to look when cuffed, as I think the bunching is quite nice. So with your cuff folded up twice, go ahead and pin it in the following places. Once everything is pinned, go ahead and tack your 4 places along the cuff down with a few straight stitches. And voila! Your Chandler fitted back pants are complete. I hope you feel super proud of yourself for tackling this pattern with its fully functional fly front. You did it! Thanks again so much for joining me for this sew along tutorial. I hope that you found it helpful and fun. See you all next time. Bye!